Hey, Chael. Just wondering, who is your favorite fighter going into 2020 and who are you most excited for in the UFC? Appreciate the content. Thank you.
Well, 2020 has already started to lay out a little bit, right? I mean, what's Masvidal going to do? What's next for Usman? What's next for Covington? I mean, these guys are all stars. Is St. Pierre coming back? I mean, look, we've already got our January. We already got Connor and Cowboy done. We already got our April done with Khabib versus Tony. We already have been informed that Stipe and Daniel are going to go at it one more time. I mean, the year is starting to unfold. Dana White has even said that Adesanya versus Romero has a time frame, and that is about to be announced. So, who am I looking forward to the most is a little bit harder to answer, but only because we're put in a really great spot right now where we have a number of contests that are going to take us until early summer that we can already have anticipation for.
Hey, how's it going, Uncle Chael? Big fan here. So here's my question. If you can combine all the different attributes of different fighters into one ultimate fighter, so say, take the boxing of Conor McGregor, take the head kicks of Edson Barboza and Michael Krokop, take the strength of Francis Ngannou, and take the grappling of the bad guy himself, Chael Sonnen, and trash talk from the best to ever do it, of course, the juice box crusher himself, Tito Ortiz. Who would you pick and why? Keep up the content, Uncle Chael.
Well, I don't know that I would disagree with who you just threw out there. I like what you said about strength and Ngannou. I think if you were looking for grappling, I think that Maia would probably be the guy that you'd have to turn to. And so many people think of Maia as just a jiu-jitsu player. But if you see what a wonderful wrestler he is, just go see his last fight against Ben Askren. I mean, Maia can do a little bit of everything. I think if you were just to grab one guy for the grappling skills, it would probably be him. I like what you're saying about Conor McGregor with his boxing. I like the Conor more for his length, his ability to control distance, his awkwardness. His an awkwardness similar to Gunnar Nelson's. They used to train together a little bit. Maybe that's why I make that reference. I prefer the just straight up boxing of Stipe Miocic. I think your ability to compete and the toughness and to stay in the moment, I think you'd have to look at a George St. Pierre. I like for kicks going to Barboza. I like a grit of, somebody along the Paul Felder lines. And when it comes to trash talk, I think that I think Colby's a lot of fun. Connor's obviously going to come to mind. I'm really enjoying a lot of the work, though, that Adesanya's been putting out.
Hey, Chael, just want to know your thoughts on a potential matchup between Gracie and Ryan Hall. I personally think it makes a lot of sense because of where Ryan Hall is ranked. I believe he's ranked 14 or 15, yet still nobody wants to fight him. And then you got Gracie, who's trying to break his way into that top 15, and I think this is a perfect stylistic matchup for him. The battle of grapplers in that division. Who do you think will come out on top? Just want to know your thoughts. Thanks.
Oh, I'd love to see that match. I like what you're doing there. That could be an interesting one. Skill-wise, Ryan Hall he's crazy. I mean, he's doing these crazy and wild. He's so fun to watch. Chrono's a little bit more by the book. But I do think that if you had, speculating here, but I would suspect that Hall admires Kron on some level. Whether it's the family lineage, whether it's who got their black belt first, whether it's, medals in grappling events, I would imagine that a decorated grappler, an aspiring grappler like Ryan Hall, on some level admires Gracie, and mentally that could be a little bit of a struggle. I think as far as the match goes, and I've seen some very interesting positions, maybe even Ryan Hall shut down in a couple of spots, but exposing Kron in some other spots. I love everything that match would have to offer. I would just want to make sure that both guys want to do it. And I'm only guessing, but I think I'm right, at least to some degree, that Hall is probably not looking to fight a fellow jiu-jitsu ace.
G'day, Chael. Loving your work. Hey, I just watched Khabib v Poirier for like the third or fourth time, and I realised that Khabib, he always wants to, push the opponent back to outside of those two octagon markings on the canvas and then make you take down to, get him up against the fence. And to do that, he normally just steps forward a little bit and, feels the opponent out and sort of slowly pushes him back. And then when he couldn't get, like Poirier, for example, to do that, he throws a few punches to, force Poirier to panic and get on the back foot and then makes the takedown. Do you think if, so when Tony fights Khabib in April, do you think he's going to be able to sort of avoid stepping back and sort of like step to the side and remain inside those two octagon markings to avoid the takedown? Or do you think Khabib will still be willing to eventually make the takedown in the center of the octagon and go from there? Cheers, Chael.
Oh, I definitely agree with you that if Tony can keep his back off the fence, I mean, look, Khabib is not this great wrestler, okay? Now, I'm not putting Khabib's wrestling down. He's very good. What I'm saying is there is a little bit of a dots connected in perception of the viewer's mind. Okay, Khabib's fighting, Khabib's on top, Khabib's mauling somebody. Oh, look, it's a new round, it's a new fight, it's a new match. Khabib's on top again, mauling somebody. He must be a great wrestler. Look, Khabib is great at getting takedowns, but wrestling, as I'm classifying it here, wrestling is done in the open. There are no walls in wrestling. There are no fences in wrestling. If you went off of the mat, the referee would bring you back and you would then compete in the open again. Khabib does not get a lot of takedowns in the open. In fact, he gets stuffed a lot of times. He goes to a single leg, which is a very ineffective takedown for mixed martial arts. I've never really seen a mixed martial artist outside of Chris Weidman who's made a career at takedowns based on a single leg. It's just a very rare takedown. Khabib is a master of pushing you against the fence and going to work from there. So if you're Tony or anybody else, if you can stand your ground or push forward, not back up and not be pressured and not let your back hit the fence against Khabib, if you can do that, and it appears to be a very hard thing to do, but if you can do that, at least on probability, your chances of not being taken down go up.
Uncle Chael, it's Garrett McKean from Washington, Utah. It's early. I'm going to work, but I'm getting your clips in. Real quick, what do you think of the cruiserweight division in the UFC? 225 pounds. Break up that split between 205 and 265. We could even raise the 265 heavyweight limit. What do you think? Enough athletes at that weight to cover a division for that? Thanks, Uncle Chael. Big fan.
Oh, I love the 220, the 225 pound weight class. You know, just to remind you, Kurt Angle, that's where Kurt Angle won his world championships and his Olympic championships. And Kurt really would have been stuck. I mean, under today's scope, and I'm using amateur wrestling, but I think that Kurt's a name that everybody can relate to that watches this, went on to be a big WWE star. Look, under today's scope, he is likely not only not a world champion, not an Olympic champion, he's likely not even on those teams. He wouldn't have had a weight class. Kurt would have had to cut all the way down to 185 pounds, okay, which would have been Les Gutch's weight. He would have had to cannibalize his body. Kurt, for 4 years of college, was a heavyweight. He was a very small heavyweight, but he was still a heavyweight. To make believe that he's then going to cut all the way down to 185 pounds, I think is a stretch, and I think he would have just been too small to be heavyweight. I mean, I want to say in 1996, yeah, Kurt was on the same team as Bruce Baumgart. He wasn't going to make the team at heavyweight. So Kurt needed that 220-pound weight class. And I only offer that to you as an example because could you imagine somebody as great of an athlete, a world and Olympic champion, as great of an athlete as Kurt Angle, not even being given the opportunity to compete? You would have never heard of Kurt Angle had that weight not been established. And I think that there's probably some guys like that right now. I think there's probably some of these in-between guys that they're just not quite big enough for heavyweight. They're too damn big, you know, to get down to the light heavyweight class. I agree with you. That is a big gap. 205 to 265 is a very big gap. I like cruiserweight, and I think I've also proven my point by giving the example of Kurt Angle, that there's guys and athletes there that can draw. This isn't some ability where a promoter wouldn't want to do it. For example, heavyweight isn't the heaviest class. You may not know that. There's another class, and I believe it's called super heavyweight or it's called ultra heavyweight, but the commissions all have it. The ABC will contest, all commissions have it where you can go above 265 for both boxing and MMA. It's just extremely rarely tested. There's just not very many promoters that want to get in there and get in business with athletes that big in combat. First off, there's not a lot of them. It'd be very hard to form a division. But secondly, in a sport like this, it's so built around conditioning to make believe that you're going to have these 350-pound guys come in there and go at it. I'm just offering you for an example. Okay, the other end of it. I'm offering you for an example. There is things to do above the 265-pound weight class, and I think that you're spot on. If we're going to break something up, so much talk was talked about 165 I don't really know where that dialogue came, but it really got hot for a while there. There was even guys trying to form a division and athletes making agreements to show up and compete at 165, and it seemed like there was a whole big pool. They're ready to do it. I love that. I love the opportunity there. But it does seem to me that if you could only add one class, it would be more appropriate to give the opportunity to the guys that are stuck with the big gap between 205 and 265. So to your question of would I like to see a cruiserweight, you bet.